Hello and welcome. In this video, you will learn how to create and run the scheduler and client manager containers using Docker. This video applies to both Zena and Enterprise Orchestrator. When you see commands, configuration values, or directory paths that reference a product name, be sure to substitute the correct identifier for your environment. If you're using Zena, use Zena in the relevant places. If you're using Enterprise Orchestrator, use AEO. Aside from these product-specific substitutions, the steps and concepts shown in this video apply equally to both platforms. Before starting, ensure that a database is available outside the container. The scheduler and client manager containers must connect to an Enterprise Orchestrator or Zena database. Database connection details are passed as environment variables using a file named docker.env. We recommend using the docker.env file as it contains the details of the database server, database type, database user, and the user's encrypted password. We'll use the scheduler installer to create the docker.env file. To start the scheduler installer, enter this command. Select the option 3, Create Database with Container Environment File. Confirm the default location. For Zena, it is /tmp/Zena, and for Enterprise Orchestrator, it is /tmp/AEO. Enter the database details for your existing Zena or Enterprise Orchestrator database. In this video, we have selected option 2, Microsoft SQL Server, as the database type. Choose option 2 to connect to an existing Zena or Enterprise Orchestrator database. Enter the host name or IP address of the host where the database server is located. Enter your database connection details, including server port, service name, database name, username, and password. Review the pre-installation summary information and press Enter to complete the setup. Let's verify if the docker.env file has been created. For Zena, enter the following command. And for Enterprise Orchestrator, enter this command. We have now created the docker.env file, which contains the environment variables needed for our container. Now we're ready to run the containers. Next, we will pull the scheduler and client manager images from the Docker registry. First, log into the registry with your username and password by using the link that is displayed on the screen. The login was successful. Next, use the docker pull command to retrieve the scheduler container image. Let's review the parameters specified in the docker pull command. Zena specifies the Zena product. Use AEO if you're using the Enterprise Orchestrator product. Scheduler specifies the component to run. Valid values are scheduler, client manager, agent, or .NET agent. 4.5.1.32 specifies the version to pull the image from. Use latest to pull the most recent distribution release. We have successfully pulled the scheduler container image. Next, we will retrieve the client manager container image using the command displayed on the screen. We have successfully pulled the client manager container image. Now we are ready to run the scheduler and client manager container images. Next, run the scheduler container using the docker run command. Now let's take a look at the docker run command in detail. The docker run is the base command to run a container. The D option runs the container in detached mode, meaning the container will run in the background. Next, the env file option points to the docker.env file we created. Docker will load all the variables defined in the environment variable file and pass them to the container. The name option assigns a name to the container. The V option mounts a volume. It maps the host directory /tmp/Zena/scheduler to the container directory opt/Zena/data. This allows the container to read-write data to the host's file system. The RM option automatically removes the container when it stops. This is useful for temporary containers that don't need to persist after execution. Finally, the registry address, image name, and version are specified. To summarize, this command launches the Zena scheduler in a Docker container, utilizing environment variables, a mounted volume, and a specific image version, all while running in the background and automatically cleaning up when complete. Let's run the scheduler container. The scheduler container has started. Let's check if the scheduler is active. Enter the command shown on screen. Be sure to replace the container name used in this example with the name of your own container. To see what's running inside the container, use the compstat command. You can see in the output that the scheduler is up and running. Type exit to exit the container and return to the host environment. Let's check the contents of the scheduler directory. Type the following command. You can see that the container log has been created. Next, we'll check the config directory. The config directory should have the server1.xml file. Let's open the server1.xml file and review its contents. Inside, you'll find details like the database driver, name, password, and URL, along with the server name we specified in the docker.env file. The container was able to read these values, connect to the database, and set up the scheduler container successfully. Now we will run the client manager container. Enter this command. Let's take a look at the docker run command in detail. The docker run is the base command to run a container. The D option runs the container in detached mode, meaning the container will run in the background. Next, the env file option points to the docker.env file we created. Docker will load all the variables defined in the environment variable file and pass them to the container. The name option assigns a name to the container. The V option mounts a volume. It maps the host directory /tmp/zena/clientmgr to the container directory opt/zena/data. This allows the container to read-write data to the host's file system. The P option maps port 7980 inside the container to port 17980 on the host machine. This is useful for accessing the application from outside the container. The RM option automatically removes the container when it stops. This is useful for temporary containers that don't need to persist after execution. Finally, the registry address, image name, and version are specified. To summarize, this command launches the Zena Client Manager in a Docker container, using custom environment settings, exposing it on port 17980, and mounting a local directory for data access. The container runs in the background and is automatically cleaned up when stopped. Let's run the Client Manager container. The Client Manager container has started. Once the container is up and running, let's check if the Client Manager is active. Enter the command. Be sure to replace the container name used in this example with the name of your own container. To see what's running inside the container, use the compstat command. The Client Manager is up and running. Type exit to exit the container and return to the host environment. Let's access the Client Manager container file using the command. The log of the created container is displayed. Next, access the config directory using the command. The Client Manager files are available inside the directory. We'll now check all the files and directories inside the log directory. The files and directories are displayed. Lastly, issue this command to verify if both the scheduler and Client Manager containers are running. Both the scheduler and Client Manager containers are running. With this, the setup of these Docker containers is complete. We have reached the final step to verify the setup and connectivity between components. Open a browser and connect to the Client Manager using the host address and the machine port you configured. The web client has initialized successfully. Sign in using your web client credentials. In the scheduler status, we can see the successful connectivity. This concludes our demo on running as Docker containers. To summarize, we covered the following steps: creating the docker.env file with required database connection details, pulling the scheduler and Client Manager images from the Docker registry, running the scheduler and Client Manager containers with environment variables, port mappings, and persistent volume mounts, verifying that both containers run successfully and connect to each other. That wraps up our demonstration on creating and running the scheduler and Client Manager containers. For more in-depth guidance, visit the Rocket documentation portal. Thank you for watching.